This is a Flying Llama Studios production. Visit flyinglamastudios.net for more information.
And take two.
Yeah. Something happened to your internet connection, didn't it?
Big time. Everything just went.
Yeah.
And we had to. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be all right this time around. But hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to this week's Babblefish. My name is Lorcian, and that over there with a big grin on his face is Crace. We're back again. Another week.
Yes.
Another Babblefish.
Yet another one to add to the annals of history.
Yeah. Anyway, so how are you? How's things? How's life? Bearing in mind we've already had this conversation once.
Yes, we have. Yes, not to beat a dead horse. Good news this week. I found a new job and I'm moving back to Dorset.
Yeah.
Home in particular. Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier on, and that is really good news. It's really good news. I mean, it's something you've wanted to do for a while because obviously your family and everything else and your friends and everything is really down this end this way. Yep. So, I mean, that's good.
It's been tough during COVID because I'm on my own here. So
yeah, and of course your mum's recently retired as well, which is another thing.
Yeah, she's retired. Yeah.
So yeah, so at least
we've all got our COVID jabs.
Oh, I don't.
Well, actually, yeah, that was something I got this last Sunday as well. COVID jab.
Yeah.
So, well,
yeah, I'm not in any at-risk groups or anything. I'm not, so I'm probably going to be the last person to get an injection probably at this rate.
Well, you're not a child, so...
No, I'm not, but I'm not at any at-risk groups, and I'm still sort of in my 30s, so I think... I mean, it'll be coming up in my next... probably in the next few weeks, I would have thought, will be...
I would... I'm guessing May?
Yeah.
But, I'm not sure.
Oh, well, I'm hoping it'll be...
The first jab.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So, time to push this button. Hopefully it doesn't break everything like it did last time. But yeah, no, welcome to the show, everyone. We're an entertainment-focused show. We talk about geeky news. If you haven't listened to us before, sort of TV, movies, games, really, that sort of thing. And I mean, in terms of games, I discovered something earlier on, just as we're getting ready for the show. Sequel I've been waiting for 30 years is finally coming out,
to which I was like, 30 years? How can there be a game like a sequel 30 years in the making?
Well, there is.
And then you explained it, and I was like, oh!
I know. So this obviously goes back to me being...
old.
Yeah. I suppose it does, yeah. But yeah, Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo was one of my all-time / is one of my all-time favorite games. And I just enjoyed it. I mean, obviously being a 7-year-old kid or whatever at the time, I just loved Turtles. And the game was great. I really enjoyed it. And I played it to death, like over and over and over again. And even now as an adult, I still play it occasionally. I've got emulators and stuff. But yeah, I occasionally play it, and it brings back some nostalgia. But the good news is they finally decided to make a sequel 30 years later.
Yeah, and it looks good.
Yeah, it does. It's a side-scrolling.
I mean, it looks good by it's the standard, as you say, side-scrolling, but it's not so pixelated as it was on the SNES.
Yeah.
And the music sounds really good as well.
Yeah, it should be alright. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Like, I'm really looking forward to this one, and I really, really hope they don't mess it up. I really hope they don't mess it up.
And it's coming to PC as well, which is amazing.
I always thought I was sort of, I don't know, I like nostalgia wouldn't get me, but it's kind of got me here. So, yeah.
No, it does look really good.
Mm-hmm. Right. I've only been waiting for 30 years.
You've got that nostalgia thing, but the Turtles games were actually really good games.
Yeah,
and
they were.
Still stand up to scrutiny today.
Mm-hmm.
So
anyway, so that's the big news for me. What
Total
else?
Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The music was one of the best things about Turtles in Time. There was a specific train bit. I still remember the song to this do 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 do. I still hear it in the back of my head. 30 years later.
They've still got those annoying robot things with lasers.
Yeah, those were horrible.
They were really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
A bit like me singing.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry, that's not gonna happen again. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be great. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah. Anyway, so other news. Suppose personal news. The house is still. It looks like we might be moving in the next sort of 3, maybe 4 weeks if we're lucky.
So, similar to me.
Yeah. So literally, as you're moving back down, we're buggering off.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was on the same day?
Well, it might be that I can sort of phase it over a week or so. So
I just thought it would be fun. It's like, I'm back. Cool. See you later. Bye. We drive off down to Blandford Way.
So, yeah, we can meet up in back gardens and stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with everything over the next few months. I'm not going to hold my breath too much, but I'm hoping that, at least now people are being vaccinated. It should be a bit better.
Hopefully the weather's going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Not this week notwithstanding. But
yeah, it's been really, here in England, the weather's been all over the place for the last few days, really. We've had all sorts of really winds and stuff. Like, I remember last night I got woken up in the middle of the night because the bin got blown down the road. And they were sort of bouncing around down there on the driveway or whatever, and it was just, really? So, yeah, I mean, we need to find a way, really, of tying those bins down, because that always happens every year.
Well, you won't have to worry about it.
Well, I have to worry about more just different bins.
Well, but you don't know where they're going to be stored, so...
Yeah. I'll need to build some sort of because some people do that, don't they? They build like these little sheds for the bins or whatever, which I think is quite clever. I'd like to see if we can do that, because that sort of makes sense. I mean, it's really only useful for maybe a couple of days a year, when we get really bad weather or whatever.
And, I mean, it keeps...
But it's useful.
Because bins are quite unsightly, aren't they?
Yeah, and I'm not too bothered about that. I just think it's useful for like the couple days of the year when we get storms. And then the bins fall over and stuff goes all over the place, rubbish, and then you're...
Well, because what you could also do is build it big enough so that you've got an area where it's got like a key touchpad, some sort of key lock thing. So
that's getting fancy now.
If you've got deliveries...
you can stick it in there.
You can ask them to stick it in there. Yeah.
Or maybe get like an Amazon delivery locker or something.
Well, not quite that far, but you can get these things that you put on like the side of your house. That you can.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we're pretty lucky here in the UK. We don't have. I think it's quite prevalent in America, where you get like these people that go along and just try and steal people's deliveries and stuff. I mean, luckily they don't do that here, at least not yet, anyway. And long may that continue. Some areas, but long may that continue. But yeah, it's. I mean, I haven't had any problems. Like, I mean, plus if I'm not in or whatever, the neighbors are usually in, and we get on quite well with the neighbors anyway, so it's not usually a problem. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it could be useful. But yeah, anyway, this isn't Daniel's bin show. Lorcian's bin show. But yeah, no, I just wanted to, give people an update on the whole house situation. So I'm probably going to have to take a break from the show for a couple of weeks while we move and build a new studio, which is going to be a bit, Yeah,
it's going to be chaotic.
It will be. But I am sort of thinking about whether or not I can rebuild the studio and make it a bit less crazy. Like, less stuff, maybe. Just try and consolidate some stuff, maybe. Make it, a bit more intelligent. Because at the moment, there's just stuff everywhere. And a lot of it is if I'm honest, is relatively superfluous at this point. I mean, it's just
got
a lot of stuff that I don't use, and really, I could get rid of a lot of this stuff now. But yeah, we'll see. Because what I was sort of having a look, I was sort of inspired by a few YouTube things I was watching. You know, you have all these people, I'm going to build my ultimate setup. And you see all these people, and they build this studio, whatever, with RGBs everywhere, and it's just...
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've kind of been inspired by that, so I'd like to see if I could do that. Just sort of consolidate everything, just have the absolute bare minimum, but have the stuff that I do have be fully functional and work well, rather than just have cables everywhere.
The thing is, with what you've got at the moment, you have got room to... Well, the scope to add stuff. So if you have extra people in the studio, for instance, you can
that's true.
Mics and headsets and
stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
So.
Yeah.
And hopefully, when I've moved back and you've got the studio built and we're allowed to actually meet up in person, go inside.
Yeah.
Then these shows will be in your studio.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know. Just kind of playing around with ideas at the moment. Anyway, so what are we on the wave news then for this week? It's mostly it's a lot of tech news from what I can see. Our movie of the week, which was I picked this one, which I'm a little bit sorry about because it was a little bit dull. Was Assassin's Creed, which came out in 2016, which we'll be talking about towards the end of the show. It was alright. It was just, It was basically by the numbers. I really wasn't particularly impressed by it.
No, but
we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little later. Yeah. All right. Well, let's start then. Do you want to start with the Bethesda news?
Oh yeah, can do. Yeah,
we'd go that way around. Yeah.
I think we actually spoke about this when they first announced that this was going to happen. So when was it? Sometime last year, I think it was. Microsoft / Xbox announced that they were going to be buying ZeniMax Studios, which is
the parent company of Bethesda.
And id Software and various other Arcane as well, I believe, gaming studios. And it was announced, I think it was Tuesday? It was Tuesday. It was announced that the takeover has completed and it is now part of Xbox. Yeah,
so that they had to get approval from regulators apparently in the US and the European Union.
Yes.
And the whole deal cost a grand total of $7.5 billion.
Yep.
$7.5 billion.
Which is, I mean, it's a lot of money, but compared with the size of Microsoft.
Yeah, I know. 7.5 billion.
But it does bring into question some of the games that Bethesda is known for. Specifically things like Elder Scrolls, which they are developing a sixth iteration of.
Well, they've been doing that for ages, haven't they? I mean, we haven't had any more news on that.
The question is more, where is it going to be available? Because traditionally, Bethesda games have been available across pretty much every platform.
Oh, you know what? They're going to have to get rid of their terrible launcher. Maybe. And everything's going to be bundled in the...
Yeah, the Microsoft Store or Steam. Or come back to Steam. Because, of course, a lot of the Microsoft games are now available in Steam.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So they're probably going to... Yeah, which is great, because I dislike having yet another launcher. Like, every company's now has got its own launcher, like Ubisoft launcher and Bethesda launcher and Blizzard launcher, and it's like all these separate accounts with all these separate passwords and usernames for each of these things. I just think, Why can't people just use one shared platform?
GOG.
One shared marketplace.
Oh, the marketplace.
Yeah.
Well, because all the different companies want their
cut, want their bit of the pie.
cut. I
That's
mean,
it, yeah.
obviously the Bethesda launcher. If you're buying stuff from that, all proceeds go to Bethesda/ZeniMax.
Yep.
Which will now
No,
go
it
to
always-
Microsoft.
Yeah, it always ends up coming down to money. That's the thing.
It does,
It's just really irritating because I'm just tired of all these launchers. So maybe there might be one less launcher. That's my takeaway from this news. I don't care about the $7.5 billion that it cost them.
Well, I
or
mean,
anything
it's interesting because obviously.
But it's not just Bethesda, is it? Part of the deal. There's tons of stuff. There's like
Well, no,
IDs.
it's the whole ZeniMax Media is the parent company, and they as I say they own id Software, Arcane Studios, Bethesda Studios. I think there's a couple of others. ZeniMax is actually a studios as well because they produce Elder Scrolls Online.
That's actually quite a good game, that one.
So yeah, it's quite a big acquisition there.
Yeah.
But the biggest question is how much of their stuff is going to be available on other platforms besides PC and Xbox. They have noted that there's 2 games that are in agreements to be
Exclusives.
exclusives on PlayStation 5. They are Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, and they will honor that deal. The exclusive is only time limited anyway.
So it'll come out on.
So it will come out
eventually,
on Xbox and PC. Whether they'll come out on Switch, don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, I think all the games, at least a lot of the big titles that these companies release, they're going to be exclusives for a while because Microsoft's going to want to utilize that to try and get their memberships up or whatever.
Well, yeah, there's that, and the fact that Microsoft were. I don't know whether this now makes them first party for Microsoft because they're technically a Microsoft studio now, so that in theory makes them first party.
Yeah.
And they did say that all their first party games will be available on Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah, which is actually pretty good. I mean,
pretty much anything that Bethesda makes or ZeniMax makes beyond Deathloop and Ghostwire, in theory, should just be available on Xbox Game Pass.
Guess we'll see what happens.
Potentially a massive boon for Xbox and Microsoft.
Yeah.
I mean, they need something because they really suffer with first-party games compared with Sony.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I haven't really been a big console person for a long time, so I'm kind of out of the loop when it comes to exclusives and which platforms which and all this kind of stuff.
I mean, I know Microsoft, Nintendo obviously have a lot of first-party games, but a lot of them are very niche games, whereas Sony just seems to be, hit it out of the park with first-party or at least console.
Yeah.
PlayStation exclusives. They have so many compared with Microsoft, and that's part of the reason that I think a lot of people buy PlayStations over Xbox because their exclusives tend to be a lot better.
All right, well, there we go. That's that. Yeah. Jack Dorsey bids reach 2.5 million for Twitter co-founder's first post.
Yeah, I mean, I had to read the whole article to understand who, because I wasn't sure who Jack Dorsey was.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, he's a co-founder of Twitter.
Oh, okay.
So he listed his first ever tweet to be bid for. So you could own, if you've got enough money, you can own his first ever tweet, which apparently is just setting up my Twitter.
And somebody bought that for 2.5 million.
Well, it's currently at $2.5 million.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Reasons?
That's
I don't know.
crazy.
Yeah. I saw it. I was like, really? Why?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't get it. That's yeah. It'll be sold as a non-refundable, non.
Non-fungible
What's fungible
token.
mean?
It's
I've never heard that term before.
yeah, I've never heard that before, but apparently it's a thing.
Okay, well, it's a non-fungible token apparently.
Yeah,
A
which
unique
is a
digital certificate states who owns the photo, video, and other form of online media, but the post will remain publicly available on Twitter after it has been auctioned off.
yeah.
The buyer will receive a certificate digitally signed and verified by Mr. Dorsey, as well as the metadata of the original tweet. The data will include information such as the time of the tweet was posted and its text content. But it essentially just says I'm setting up my Twitter.
Yeah, just setting up my Twitter, and Twitter's
Misspelled.
well, yeah, exactly.
And that's selling for $2.5 million.
The guy that co-founded Twitter can't even spell Twitter. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, somebody's spending. I don't understand. I can't get into that kind of headspace. You know, for somebody that has so much money available to them, that spending $2.5 million for a tweet that's, I don't know, 12 years old. No, more than that.
2006.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, 15 years.
Yeah, 15 years old.
Because it was March 21st, so nearly 15 years.
Is worth 2.5 million. And it seems like a good deal. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do?
Imagine having that sort of money. That's what I'm...
To just spend on
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's just something stupid to spend money on, really.
If you got so much money, you can... Yeah, that's...
I suppose you could argue it's the same with people that buy like the movie memorabilia, as in parts of sets or a costume that was worn by a specific actor in a movie or a TV show. I mean, it just, you know, it probably just sits in a wardrobe or in a display cabinet or something. At least that's something you can see. With a tweet, it's just there on Twitter, and nobody's going to give a...
Yeah, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
So with minutes of the tweet being available for bids, literally minutes, it reached $88,000.
Yeah.
But then skyrocketed on Saturday with a bid of 1.5 million, being...
Yeah.
And then that was then trumped by 2 million bid.
Yeah.
A few hours later, according to Valuables, the tweet sale will go to the original creator, and the remainder going to the website. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Anyway, right, let's move on. So yeah, Amiga. So the company, the old games console company. It wasn't a game. It was a sort of computer. It was a home computer, wasn't it? Back in the day, the Amiga.
Yeah, it was kind of a well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was a basic computer, wasn't it?
Yeah, that played games. I mean, it's yeah. A new motherboard for Amiga, the platform that refuses to die. So basically, a company have gone out and they've manufactured new boards for the Amiga because apparently there's such a hardcore following. That apparently there's a market for it.
Yeah, which is also kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, everything on Amiga you can get emulated.
Yeah, I think it's a nostalgia thing. I think it's a lot of people remember these things from their childhood growing up, and they're just like, I remember Amiga. They were cool. I want an Amiga. And I think people are still developing for it now, even now.
Yeah, I think they are actually. Yeah, developing
Sort of
for
games and
it was
stuff.
Amiga OS, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
It had its own operating system, which actually was fairly good
Mm-hmm.
for the time.
So the thing is apparently well executed open source PCB. That's a drop-in replacement for the original motherboard, CPU, and RAM. The video are broken out into daughter boards with PCMCIA replaced by an SD card slot. The catch, it does require all the custom Amiga chips from the donor board, so you have to take off all the chips and put them in the
Yeah,
replacement one.
they were just easy. So most of them were just easy pop out and pop back on, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so the original Amiga 1200 was a significant upgrade to the architecture of the 1980s originals, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically just a fully functional replacement for it. But
So
it's interesting that even after all these
that's-
years, there's still enough of a following for it that, there's a company that goes, well, there's a demand, so we're going to manufacture a replacement motherboard.
Yeah, so it sounds as if they're essentially just updating it with technology to be able to use it with, with modern day systems.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't know what the graphics output was on the Amiga, but I doubt anybody's got, or very few people have probably got a monitor or a TV that would support it these days. So.
Well, I mean, I think it's probably quite good in a way because I suspect, although, the chips and stuff have to be, I don't know, I guess there must be companies manufacturing all that as well. Not just the motherboard, but also all the chips and the I.O. and everything else.
Yeah, and I wonder how that's being affected by the shortages.
Because that's going to be, I'd imagine a lot of those things are probably, hard to source anyway.
Mm.
Isn't it interesting, though? I suspect it's probably just...
Although, if you've got an EEPROM machine, you could probably do it yourself.
Yeah, it's the sort of stuff we used to study. Remember that when we used to go to college? When
Yeah.
we did our BTEC or whatever it was. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, they've obviously... there's obviously still enough of a market for it, so that's kind of cool. There's a guy at work that I work with who's really into all this retro stuff like this. I mean, he'd probably be interested in this. And I suspect there's probably a lot of people that listening to this that sort of grew up in the 80s or whatever, just like, will probably be quite interested. But I don't know. I mean, it's always kind of struck me as being a little bit silly. But I guess,
Yeah, it looks like they have put, or they are putting on HDMI. Huh.
So they're improving it a bit then.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, personally, I'd just emulate it.
Yeah, like most people would. I don't, yeah. I think it's just a hobby, isn't it? It's just a bit of fun, just to, it's like it goes along the lines of the whole arcade machines. The retro arcade machines are now popular, and everybody wants an arcade machine in their house now. It's basically the same thing. It's just nostalgia.
Like my niece's dad built an arcade machine.
Well, it's basically just nostalgia, and that's all it is. And that's fine. Whatever. Each their own.
Well, same with Turtles. Nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, it really isn't that great a game if you look at it sort of objectively. But yeah, because I have all these childhood memories of sitting in my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pajamas as a kid, playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the SNES.
Pajamas and sweatshirts.
Yeah, and I had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles duvet cover.
I had the plastic shell that you could put on.
Really?
Yeah.
Nerd.
Yeah.
All right.
I was a child, wasn't I?
I know. I'm just. All right. Well, anyway, so moving on. Apple reportedly overestimated iPhone 12 mini demand by a lot.
Yeah.
It's cutting production by 70%. Now, I really want one of these.
Really?
I really want one of these.
See,
because
it's interesting because in the article they mentioned that they didn't sell as well as they thought they would, because everybody wants the bigger ones, and you're like the minority that wants the small one.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to get on this pretty quick. I don't like big mobile phones. I've never liked big mobile phones. I've always, the smaller the better for me, because I can just stick it in my pocket and forget about it. But it seems like whatever phone you get these days, it's just, they seem to be getting bigger and bigger to the point now where they're just getting a bit ridiculous. Like, I realize I'm a boomer at this point. I'm sounding like a boomer.
But you're not. You're
you millennial.
Still...
But whatever. Anyway, so
Yeah.
whatever. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't tend to do much media consumption on my phone. I tend to use my phone for WhatsApp, Signal, Discord, making calls occasionally, text messages, whatever, Twitter, Instagram. But that's it. Really, I don't really tend to watch much YouTube, play any games on it. I don't really tend to do anything like that on it. So I don't really use it for media consumption. I still use it mostly as a communications tool. And from that point of view, I don't need a massive screen.
No, that's true. But then a lot of people do use it for all those other media consumption. I do to a certain extent, but then I've also got a tablet as well. So yeah.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I if I watch anything in bed, I'll watch it on my tablet.
Yeah, same here.
I won't watch it on my phone. My phone, for me, is purely just a communications tool, and I have to carry around with me everywhere I go, so the smaller the better. And I'm surprised I'm in the minority there, because I would have thought that would have been the case for most people these days, but no. Apparently, people want massive screens on their phones, so...
Yeah, they want big screens, apparently.
Yeah. It's interesting how that, yeah.
Some of them, yes, they have gotten to a ridiculous size.
Right? Like, you could quite happily beat somebody around the head with these phones and, do a significant amount of damage. I mean, these things are getting big now, And I don't know, I'm kind of like the opposite. I kind of want my phone to be as small as I can get away with. Like, I remember years ago, they had these tiny little Nokias. Like, these teeny tiny little Nokias, and they were just the best thing ever. They were you could geek out on these things because they were so small.
This is why I think that the folding phones are a better option. Like the Galaxy Z Flip and the Motorola Razr.
I do want one of the Z Flips because I want to get, because it kind of looks like an old tricorder from Star Trek. Yeah. The way it kind of flips. I quite like that.
Yeah. Or the Razr.
The nerd in me quite likes that.
The remake of the Razr, which I'm interested in the Galaxy Fold, but there again, it's
expensive.
It's expensive. Well, so's the Z Flip, but they're essentially the same size as a standard phone, but you just unfold it, and then you've got screen in the middle and then a screen on the outside, and it doesn't really solve the problem of size, whereas the other folding phones do.
They sort of do, yeah. So I could go for one of those, I suppose, but I'm kind of hoping at this point that the price will come down, because it's not really an Apple thing, is it, to kind of reduce the price of their phones, because it devalues the brand or whatever. But
no, that's true. I mean, they have the SE is obviously their cheaper entry level phone, isn't it?
So yeah, Apple's going to be cutting production for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Production's going to be reduced by 70%. Some suppliers have asked to temporarily stop producing iPhone 12 mini specific components to focus on other things, specifically the Pro and Pro Max.
Yeah, which are the enormous
the ones that sell, yeah. So, I mean, I can't. I'm really sort of struggling myself to bring myself to even talk about this, because it's a phone, and I can't tell you how bored I am of phones and how little they impress me. But yeah, it's just interesting though.
I'm interested to see what OnePlus announced on the 23rd with their OnePlus 9, because they've teamed up with Hasselblad,
Who's a Hasselblad?
Hasselblad is a very well-known camera manufacturer, and they make very high-end cameras.
Okay. Well, I don't particularly
So,
take that many pictures on my phone, so.
no, well, this is why it's interesting because a company like Hasselblad that make extremely expensive, very well known in the professional camera world cameras, teaming up with a mobile phone company to make the camera or part of the camera technology in that phone is very interesting.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me like the old red phones that came out a while ago. They tried to do that, didn't they? Where they tried to make like a professional camera phone, but it didn't really work.
Yeah, but Hasselblad have been around a lot longer than Red, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember playing with a Hasselblad when I used to get into Camera Club. They're very nice cameras.
Yeah. Nerd.
Yeah.
Nerd. So yeah, the article goes on to say that despite all the cuts, iPhone production is still scheduled to go up overall compared to 2020. Apple reportedly plans to produce 75 million handsets in the first half of the year and 230 million phones over the course of 2021. Part of the reason is thought to be because Apple was overly aggressive in booking up production capacity in the first place ahead of the global chip shortage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still want a mini because it's
an
small.
interesting thing, isn't it? Last year, obviously, not many people were going anywhere, and yet mobile phone sales was still about normal.
Oh yeah, I mean a phone's a phone, right? At this point, I think we're all over the whole phone thing. Because I remember when phones were constantly innovating. When phones first came out, mobile phones first came out, they were kind of bricky things, and then the technology improved a bit, so they started experimenting with the form factor and the design a bit. And then the software started to catch up a little bit, and more functionality was added, and then we had a whole range of stuff that was available to us, didn't we? We had basic internets and picture messaging, and video calling was a massive deal, and all these things that first came out, and we made all these iterative steps, and so every time you upgraded, you got something noticeably better. There was a constant sort of upward trend in terms of technology and software and improvements.
Yeah.
And now they're all just the same. There's no real change. The software is all the same.
Generic.
Yeah.
Boring. Yes, the processor might be better. The memory might be.
But it doesn't seem as exciting, does it? Because we've already reached peak phone now at this point in terms of functionality.
Which is why the only ones that are actually really interesting are the folding ones and the scrolling, the unfurling ones that are being developed by, like, I think LG's doing one, and Huawei are developing something like that as well, although that may not be available in territories.
Yeah. I don't know. Cool. All right, whatever. That's Apple. We've been talking about that probably a lot longer than I would like anyway. Because there's phones, I can't bring myself to talk about phones. Well, I mean, some slightly good news here. There's been a recent innovation. Now, we're going to be talking about bowel cancer at this point.
Yes.
Now, yeah, I mean, my husband had bowel cancer. I mean, he managed to recover, make a full recovery, but any type of cancer is incredibly serious. And I mean, I've obviously lost my mum to cancer, and obviously Stephen had his. We've I think most people have had some. Cancer's had an effect on a lot of people's lives. So any kind of innovation like this that can help sort of improve the odds for people, I think is a good thing, and which is why I'm quite happy to hear this. So it's an innovation in NHL self-care. They'll see patients in England swallow tiny little cameras instead of having to have an endoscopy. Yeah. Which is pretty cool. I mean, I'd much rather that.
They say I mean, the cameras are tiny, but the pill is about what do they say? It's about 2 centimeters long. The capsule. So it's still a reasonable size.
Yeah.
It's like the size of, say, a cod liver oil tablet.
Yeah, but it's pretty good though. I mean, So, yeah, people be able to check if, do regular checks by swallowing one of these things, maybe, whenever they need to. I mean, so basically what they're trying to do is the NHS are trying to do more towards proactive prevention.
And hope that, doing things from home rather than...
having to go into hospital to do it, which is
Yeah.
going to be better all round, because having to go into hospital, have an endoscopy and all of this, it does take time and everything else. And if somebody could just swallow one of these pills and then it just, I don't know, people can look at the footage or whatever.
Apparently it just transmits it wirelessly. I don't know how that works, but yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Do you somehow have to...
That would be weird though. Imagine if you looked at that on your phone or something, you had some app or something, and you could look at this thing as it goes through. So
that's what my bowels actually look like. I knew that curry was bad.
It's kind of a bit gross, isn't it? Well, I'm sure we won't be looking at, but yeah, like the article says, it's basically the size of a cod liver oil tablet. So pictures are transmitted, like you said, from inside the body. They're hoping it'll help improve the outcomes for people. It's currently one of the deadliest form of the disease in the UK. The second deadliest, sorry. The boss of the NHS in England said the procedure known as the colon capsule endoscopy is an example of sci-fi medicine increasingly deployed to improve care. One of the country's top doctors said the capsules illustrated a major shift in healthcare. Out of hospitals, they'll see more diagnosis and treatments for illnesses done at home. Yeah.
Well, it's good. That's good because it saves hospitals a lot of time. And people a lot of time having to wait in waiting rooms, and having doctors and nurses take time out to see people when they could be seeing somebody else that needs treatment straight away. Whereas, and with this, obviously, the results can be transmitted to a hospital lab, or I don't know where they would be transmitted to, and then they can just look at it and go, "Yep, you're fine," or "Uh-oh."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. And I think to try and end on a slightly more upbeat note, I think, all these treatments and stuff are going to help. If they manage to catch something earlier with this treatment and it helps improve the outcome for some people, then that has got to be a good thing. So long may it continue. I hope many more innovations like this hit the market and improve people's chances for making a full recovery.
Yeah, especially where cancer is concerned, because it is a nasty thing.
Well, it can be. Treatment's getting better all the time, but yeah, it's still, like I said, the earlier they can catch it, the better, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Some positive news.
Well, the technology is positive. It may not be positive news for some patients.
Anyway, so moving on then. Sony has filed a patent for a system that could turn bananas and other household items into PlayStation controllers. Why?
This is a bit weird.
Why? Why would you do this? Why? Why is this a thing?
See,
why do we exist in a world where this is a thing?
See, I find this a little bit weird because, Microsoft obviously had the Kinect thing for the Xbox 360 and then briefly for the Xbox One, which you could obviously control with your hand gestures, and obviously the Wii had the motion controllers, and there's a thing for PC that you can get called I think it's called Leap, which you just plug in and you can just use your hands to control things on the screen. So this seems to be a system that's slightly different, where you can just use, say, in the article it actually says that you can use like a banana or an orange or even a mug as a controller.
Yeah, but why would you want to do that?
But
I mean,
this is what I don't quite understand. Why not just develop something where you don't actually need a controller? You can just use motion gestures.
yeah, I mean, even then, I don't know. I mean, I just think, what do shoulder buttons and triggers and looking around? Like, how would you? Oh, how would you?
What you'd be sat there going, oh no, my controller's broken. Right, I know, I've got a banana in the kitchen.
Yeah. God.
I'll just use 2 bananas.
It just, I don't know. I mean, the Patent and Trademark Office published a bizarre request. Yeah, this is obviously to do with system comprises of input unit able to obtain images of non-luminous passive object held by the user as a video game controller, and then sort of maps onto that areas where a person could touch and trigger things. Yeah.
Why not just use motion controllers?
So it would be desirable if a user could use an inexpensive, simple, and non-electronic device as a video game peripheral. The system also consists of an object detector and an object pose detector, which is dependent on the position of the player's hands, the camera, and kind of works like that.
Yeah. Which goes back to my original point. Why not just have motion control?
Why not have controllers? I hear controllers are quite good.
Yeah.
They've got buttons on them, and there's like a analog sticks and triggers and buttons, and when you push them, stuff happens. I hear controllers are great. I mean, I'd rather eat a banana, personally, than
use it as a controller in one of your games.
Yeah. But, each to their own.
A lot of the VR stuff is trying to develop, like...
motion controls and stuff,
hand gestures, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can do it with the... with your one, the Rift.
Mm-hmm. I never really tend to use it, but occasionally I do see it. It sort of works. You can kind of basically interact with things. It uses the camera, positions your hand, sort of overlays it in a virtual environment. You can push buttons and stuff in this virtual environment. It sort of works. It's a little janky, but it works.
But that will get better with software, which is why I'm kind of a bit confused as to why Sony would go this route rather than that route.
Because that means they don't have to sell. They can not give people controllers, and they can charge extra for the controllers. And then they can go, well, you don't need a controller now because you can use a banana, but we're not going to reduce the cost of the console, but we're not going to give you a controller now because it's an optional peripheral. You don't need a controller. But that would still be
the case if they just developed it with motion control rather than you actually needing an object to control it.
Yeah. I'm just being facetious. I mean, ultimately, because all companies are about making as much money as they can, and if a company can turn around and make more money by giving you less stuff, then they'll probably do that.
Oh, like you mean like Apple?
Yeah.
And no, Samsung's joined in with that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of see it. It's like,
we're saving the environment. Let's not put a power brick in our thing.
Yeah. Exactly that. So it's like Sony are going to be in on that, and they'll be like, well, you don't need a controller. You could just use a banana. So you can buy a controller if you want a controller. They're £50.
I suppose it could be something that they're developing alongside their new PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
Maybe, but there again, why not just have motion control?
I can also see it going horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But that's just the
you just
the cynic in me.
Throw the banana on the ground and then somebody slips on it.
Yeah. Really sort of slapstick style.
Very.
Or maybe the sort of dog or whatever runs up to try and eat it, and then you trip up over the dog or something and knock yourself out on the table or something. You can see all sorts of lawsuits like that happening because of course it's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's the world we live in, folks. Cool, we got 10 minutes left of the show, and I suppose now is the time to talk about our movie of the week.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if I can talk about this for 10 minutes. Because I have very little to say about it, really, in all honesty. It's so for those of you unfamiliar with Assassin's Creed, it is a computer game, or at least it was. I know it's other things as well. Yes, I know, but most people will know it from being a computer game.
A series.
And it's very popular, and I think one came out actually not too long ago, and it's very popular series. It's a very interesting story. I mean, most of the story seems to carry through from one game to another, just a different setting. If you play the games, you'll understand what that's about. But yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed Assassin's Creed, especially in the last sort of, I don't know,
the games.
8 years, I think.
The games, I enjoyed the first few, and then I kind of felt that they went downhill.
Yeah.
And then when they brought out Origins, it just seemed like they completely reinvigorated the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And I have enjoyed Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla since then.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, so back to the movie. It follows basically that storyline, the whole Abstergo, the Assassin's Creed. Abstergo, Assassin's Creed. Sort of conflict. There's basically a dude who grows up into a life of crime, really, because, I don't know, his mum died or something, or his mum was assassinated. Anyway, so he grows up being really disillusioned with the world, and he gets into a life of crime or whatever, and then he ends up being sentenced to death for capital punishment, because they do that in America. Anyway, so once he's supposedly dead to the world, they sort of cart him off and revive him in their super secret laboratory, where they have their way with him.
Yeah, this would be Abstergo.
Yeah. And so basically he basically gets hooked up to this machine because they need to try and... So here's an interesting thing. The Animus is... You really have to play the...
completely different from in the games.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was a little unnecessary. But basically they use the device to kind of pull sort of genetic memory out, because apparently that's a thing. So... You can unlock
that's how all the games have been set up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really weird premise.
Ancestors'
memories in your genes.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. I mean, yeah, okay, whatever. So that's a thing. So they tried to hook him up to this machine to try and to get his memories, because they tried to look for some apple or something. I don't know. I switched off.
Apple of Eden.
Yeah. And basically it's him just flying around a room, realizing his family history, and eventually becoming an assassin himself. And that's it, really. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the story of... I'd say it's more akin to the early Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah.
Than the
recent ones. Well, I mean, considering this film came out in 2016, that would sort of make sense.
It does make sense. I mean, the film is set in Spain, so it's similar areas to the original game. I mean, they were sort of set in Italy, weren't they? The originals, some of them were, and I think one of them was set in Israel, but. It's sort of similar sort of environments. It feels like it does actually
old
feel
school
like
Assassin's
the
Creed,
Assassin's Creed games, and even some of the music sounds like Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah, I mean, if you separate it from the games, it's if you look at it as a movie in its own, it's really quite dull. It was. I didn't particularly care for the acting. I didn't particularly care for the story. It was basically just a budget Assassin's Creed. I just felt like I was watching the cutscenes from a game, that wasn't particularly,
That was part of the... I think that was part of the criticism when it came out, mostly down to the fact that people didn't... they didn't really spend a lot of time in the Animus. So
No.
back in Spain,
It was mostly just this guy running around the facility going, let me out, I'm so depressed and angry, I'm an angry man, rawr, let me out.
Pretty much. And that sort of thing didn't really gel with people, especially fans of the games, because the games.
But you've got, like you said, you've got this huge universe.
The Animus, in the early games, you do spend time in the Abstergo facility, but you don't spend that much time in that facility interacting with it.
I kind of understand the criticism, because it's like you can either be walking around in a rather stark-looking, bleak facility, being all moany and miserable, or you could be in Spain in the 1400s, being an assassin.
I mean, the bits that were in Spain with him being an assassin, they were good. That's the thing. They did actually do that bit quite well. It's just the story
wasn't enough of it. Yeah,
and there wasn't enough of it.
Anyway, so yes, I rate that movie 2 out of 5 llamas. 2 out of 5 llamas, yeah.
Ooh, that is pretty poor.
Yeah. I mean, I literally fell asleep through it, so that should tell you.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I picked a terrible movie this week. You can do next week. You'll probably
I had seen the movie before.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, because I think I probably enjoyed it more because I am a fan of the Assassin's Creed
Well, that's it, and so was I. But I still fell asleep.
And I did feel... It almost did feel nostalgic for the originals.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't a retelling of the originals, it had that feeling. It kind of made me think what they could do with something set in, say, the Origins or Odyssey sort of timeline.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Anyway, so we're out of time. That's it. We're done for today. So... yeah, that was Assassin's Creed. It's available on Netflix. Came out in 2016. And basically, if you aren't an Assassin's Creed fan, probably avoid this one, because there really isn't much there for anyone. Even for fans, to be honest with you. But fans of the franchise. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's it. It's time for us to disappear in a puff of smoke for another week. So all that's left to be said is thank you very much indeed. For watching / listening. Sorry about all the technical hiccups we had earlier on with the internet being a bit funky today. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like I've been having all sorts of internet problems the last couple of weeks. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. It's
they're getting wind of the fact that you're going to be moving, so they're going, they don't care.
I doubt it. But yeah, as always, don't forget, do like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch. It is very much appreciated. We are growing the channel, so anything you can do to give us a hand would be very much appreciated. Tell about your friend. Tell your friends about us.
There we go.
Use your words.
Being tongue twisted.
Yeah. Tell your friends about us. You won't be embarrassed too much. I don't know. But yeah, don't forget also we have a website, flyinglamastudios.net is the website address, and flyinglamastudios@gmail.com is the email address if you'd like to get in touch with us and comment on any of the stuff we've been talking about this evening. We will see you this coming Tuesday for another episode of Free to Fail, and so from the both of us, take care, have a great weekend, look after yourselves. The weather should be a bit better, hopefully, fingers crossed, yeah. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
This was a Flying Llama Studios production. No llamas were harmed in the making of this program.